I still can't believe I'm saying this, but sometimes the best thing that can happen to you is getting stabbed in the back by someone you trusted. I was sitting at my desk last Tuesday morning, reviewing quarterly reports when Cassandra walked by my cubicle. She didn't say good morning. She didn't even look at me. She just dropped a manila envelope on my keyboard and kept walking. Inside was a termination letter signed by our district manager, Everett Walsh. Effective immediately. 12 years with Meridian Financial Services. 12 years of 60-hour weeks. 12 years of covering for incompetent coworkers. And it all ended with a piece of paper and no explanation. But here's the thing. Nobody tells you about betrayal. Sometimes it's the universe's way of showing you exactly how valuable you really are. Because 24 hours later, that same district manager was calling me, practically in tears, begging me to come back. And by the end of the week, Cassandra was cleaning out her desk while I was sitting in the regional director's office, negotiating the biggest promotion of my career. This is the story of how I learned that loyalty without boundaries is just another word for exploitation, and how sometimes the people who smile at you the most are the ones sharpening the knife behind your back. My name is Serena, and I've been working in financial services since I was 22 years old. Fresh out of college with a degree in accounting and absolutely no idea what the corporate world was really like, Meridian Financial was my first real job, and honestly, I thought it would be my last. I believed in company loyalty. I believed that if you worked hard, kept your head down, and did right by your employer, they'd do right by you. 12 years later, I was still at the same company, but I wasn't the same person. I had built the entire audit compliance system from scratch. I had trained half the staff in the building. I had prevented 3 major regulatory violations that could have cost the company millions. But I was still sitting in the same cubicle, making barely more than I did 5 years ago, watching newer employees get promoted over me again and again. And then Cassandra Whitmore joined our team 8 months ago. I should have known something was off about her from day one. She had this way of tilting her head when she listened to you, like she was absorbing every word for some secret purpose. She always carried a leather notebook, constantly scribbling notes during meetings, but never about the actual work. She was writing down who said what, who disagreed with whom, who looked tired, who came in late. I thought she was just thorough. Turns out she was building a case. Cassandra had this talent for making herself indispensable to the people who mattered while making everyone else feel expendable. She'd volunteer for every project that put her in front of upper management, but somehow she never had time to help with the actual day-to-day work that kept the department running. When Everett Walsh started showing up to our floor more often, Cassandra was always right there, offering to walk him through reports, bringing him coffee, staying late to discuss department improvements that she had absolutely nothing to do with implementing. I watched it happening, but I didn't think much of it. I was focused on my work. I had deadlines to meet, audits to complete, new regulations to implement. I figured if Cassandra wanted to waste her time brown-nosing management instead of actually contributing, that was her choice. I was too busy being indispensable to worry about office politics. That was my first mistake. In corporate America, being indispensable isn't enough if the people making decisions don't see your value. And Cassandra was very good at making sure they only saw hers. The warning signs were there, but I missed them. 3 weeks before I got fired, Cassandra started asking me a lot of questions about my processes. How did I organize the compliance reports? What was my system for tracking regulatory updates? Who were my key contacts at the state oversight office? She said she wanted to learn, to be more helpful to the team. I spent hours walking her through everything I'd built over 12 years. I even gave her access to my filing systems and client databases. Looking back, I realized I was training my own replacement. 2 weeks before the termination, I noticed small mistakes starting to appear in reports I'd submitted. Nothing major, but enough to make me look careless. A transposed number here, a missed deadline there, a client complaint that somehow got lost in the system. I reported each incident to Everett, explaining that these weren't my errors, but he just nodded and made notes in his file. I thought he was documenting the problems to help fix them. Instead, he was documenting them to justify getting rid of me. The day before I got fired, Cassandra stayed late. I saw her at her desk when I left at 7:30, still typing away on her computer. She looked up and smiled at me. "Have a good evening, Serena. See you tomorrow." Those were the last words she ever spoke to me as a colleague. The next morning, I found that termination letter on my desk. No meeting, no explanation, no opportunity to defend myself. Just a piece of paper that said my position was being eliminated due to performance concerns and departmental restructuring. 12 years reduced to 2 sentences and a legal disclaimer. I sat there for maybe 10 minutes, just staring at the letter. Around me, the office was coming to life. Phones were ringing. People were chatting about their weekend plans. Someone was making coffee in the break room. Normal Tuesday morning sounds. But for me, everything had just stopped. I looked over at Cassandra's desk. She was there, typing away, that same leather notebook open beside her keyboard. She hadn't looked up when I opened the envelope. She hadn't reacted at all. And that's when I knew. She'd been expecting this. I packed my personal items into a cardboard box. 12 years of work life, fitting into a space the size of a shoebox. My coffee mug from the 2018 company retreat. A framed photo of my sister's wedding, where I'd been maid of honor but had to leave early for a client emergency. A small succulent plant that had somehow survived in the fluorescent lighting. As I was putting my laptop cord into the box, Cassandra finally looked up. "Oh no," she said, and her voice had this perfectly practiced tone of surprise and concern. "What happened?" I just looked at her. "I think you know." She tilted her head in that way she always did. "I'm so sorry, Serena. I had no idea. This is terrible." But her eyes weren't sorry. Her eyes were calculating, already moving to my empty desk, already planning how to rearrange the space. I carried my box to the elevator, and as the doors closed, I caught a glimpse of Cassandra walking toward Everett's office, that leather notebook in her hand. The drive home was a blur. I'd been fired before, but that was in retail jobs during college. This was different. This was my career, my identity, my entire adult life. I'd defined myself by my work for so long that I didn't know who I was without it. I spent the rest of Tuesday in a strange fog. I called my sister Diane, told her what happened. She was furious, ready to drive down and give Everett a piece of her mind. But what was the point? They'd made their decision. They'd chosen Cassandra's version of events over 12 years of proven performance. That evening, I did something I hadn't done in years. I opened a bottle of wine and actually watched an entire movie without checking my phone or thinking about work deadlines. It was a small rebellion, but it felt huge. For the first time in over a decade, I had a Tuesday night that belonged entirely to me. Wednesday morning, I woke up early out of habit, then remembered I had nowhere to go. I made coffee in my kitchen instead of the office break room. I read the news without rushing. I actually ate breakfast sitting down instead of grabbing a granola bar on my way out the door. It should have been depressing, but instead, it felt like waking up from a very long dream. Around 10:30, my phone rang. Unknown number, but local area code. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity got the better of me. "Serena?" The voice was shaky, stressed. "This is Everett Walsh." I sat up straighter, even though he couldn't see me. "Hello, Everett. Listen, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest with me. The Morrison account audit that was due yesterday, where are those files?" The Morrison account, one of our biggest clients, a construction company with complex regulatory requirements. I'd been working on their annual compliance audit for 3 months. It was detailed, complicated work that required understanding both federal construction regulations and state financial reporting requirements. "The files are in the Morrison folder in the shared drive," I said slowly. "The same place they've been for the past 3 months. I'm looking at the shared drive right now," Everett said, and his voice was getting tighter. "There's a Morrison folder, but it's empty except for some basic contact information." I felt something cold settle in my stomach. That's impossible. I uploaded the preliminary findings last Friday, and the complete report was scheduled for final review yesterday. "There's no report, Serena. Nothing. And Morrison's lawyers are calling every hour asking where their audit is. They're threatening to terminate their contract if we can't produce it by end of business today." I closed my eyes. Morrison was a $12 million account. Losing them would be catastrophic for our district. "Who has access to that folder?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. "The usual team. You, me, Cassandra, and Marcus from legal." Marcus had been on vacation for 2 weeks. That left Cassandra. "Everett," I said carefully, I completed that audit. 300 pages of documentation, findings, recommendations, everything. If it's not in the system, someone deleted it. There was a long pause. When he spoke again, his voice was very quiet. Are you saying someone sabotaged the Morrison account? I'm saying that someone with access to our shared systems deleted 3 months of work, and now you're asking me to explain where it went one day after you fired me. Another pause. Longer this time. Can you reconstruct it? He asked. I almost laughed. You fired me yesterday, Everett. Why would I help you fix a problem that someone created to get rid of me in the first place? Because Morrison is threatening to sue us for breach of contract, he said, and now he sounded desperate. They're talking about a $10 million lawsuit. Serena, I need that audit. Then you should ask Cassandra where it went, I said, and hung up. My phone rang again immediately. I didn't answer. It rang 4 more times in the next 10 minutes. Then the voicemails started. The first one was Everett, trying to sound official. Serena, this is a serious situation. We need to discuss the Morrison file immediately. The second one was Everett, sounding less official. Look, I know you're upset about yesterday, but we can work something out. Please call me back. The third one was from a number I didn't recognize. But when I played it, I heard a voice I knew. Serena, this is Dr. Patricia Vance from Morrison Construction. I understand there may be some delays with our audit, but I need to stress that we have regulatory deadlines that cannot be missed. If we don't receive our compliance report by 5 o'clock today, we'll have no choice but to seek legal remedy. That's when I understood the full scope of what Cassandra had done. She hadn't just deleted my files to make me look incompetent. She'd created a crisis that would force the company to either find me or lose their biggest client. My phone rang again. This time the caller ID said Regional Director. I answered on the 4th ring. This is Serena. Serena, my name is Jonathan Ashford. I'm the Regional Director for Meridian Financial Services. I believe we have a significant problem that requires your immediate attention. Jonathan Ashford. I knew the name, of course, but I'd never spoken to him directly. He was 3 levels above Everett in the corporate hierarchy, the kind of executive who only got involved when something was very, very wrong. I'm listening, I said. I've been made aware of a situation with the Morrison Construction audit. I understand you were responsible for that file, and I'm told it's missing from our systems. That's correct. I'm also told that your employment was terminated yesterday. Also correct. There was a pause. When he spoke again, his tone had changed completely. Serena, I've been reviewing your personnel file. 12 years with the company, consistently high performance ratings, no disciplinary actions. Can you help me understand why someone with your track record would be terminated the day before a critical audit deadline? I took a deep breath. Mr. Ashford, I think that's a question you should ask Everett Walsh and Cassandra Whitmore. I plan to, he said. But right now, I need to know if you can help us solve this crisis. Morrison is one of our most important clients, and we're looking at significant financial and legal exposure if this audit isn't completed. I can solve it, I said. But I'll need access to the office, access to my computer, and access to the Morrison files that I'm sure someone will magically find once I agree to help. Done, he said immediately. Can you be here in an hour? I can be there in an hour, I said. But Mr. Ashford, when this is over, I want a conversation about what really happened yesterday and who was responsible for it. You'll have it, he said. I hung up and sat in my kitchen for a few minutes, thinking. 24 hours ago, I'd been fired and humiliated. Now, the regional director was personally asking for my help. Cassandra had played her hand perfectly, but she'd made one critical mistake. She'd assumed that I was easily replaceable, that anyone could do what I did. She was about to learn otherwise. I got dressed, grabbed my car keys, and drove back to the office I thought I'd never see again. When I walked into the building, the security guard looked confused. Ms. Serena, I thought you... I'm back temporarily, I said. Emergency situation. The elevator ride to the 3rd floor felt different this time. Yesterday, I'd taken it down carrying a cardboard box and my dignity in tatters. Today, I was going back up with something I'd never had before. Leverage. The office was buzzing when I walked in. People were making hushed phone calls, typing frantically, running between cubicles with papers in their hands. Crisis mode. And in the middle of it all, I saw Cassandra at her desk, looking calm and composed. as if nothing unusual was happening. She looked up when she saw me. For just a split second, her mask slipped. I saw surprise, then calculation, then that practiced concern again. "Serena," she said, standing up. "I heard about the Morrison situation. This is terrible. Are you here to help?" I didn't answer her. I walked straight to Everett's office. He was on the phone, but when he saw me through his glass door, he quickly ended his call. "Serena, thank God you're here," he said as I walked in. "This is a nightmare. I don't understand what happened to those files. Where's my computer?" I asked. "Your computer? The laptop I've been using for 12 years. The one with my local files, my backup systems, my contacts. Where is it?" Everett looked uncomfortable. We already reassigned it. Standard procedure when someone's employment is terminated." "Reassigned to whom?" He didn't answer, but I could guess. I walked out of his office and straight to Cassandra's cubicle. She was typing away, and sitting next to her monitor was my laptop. My laptop, with 12 years of backup files, contact lists, and yes, a complete local copy of the Morrison audit. "Cassandra," I said, and my voice was loud enough that several people stopped what they were doing to listen. "That's my computer." She looked up with wide, innocent eyes. "Oh, this? Everett assigned it to me yesterday after you left. I've been trying to piece together your files to help with the Morrison situation." "Is that right?" I said. "And what have you found?" "Unfortunately, it looks like the files are corrupted," she said with a perfectly straight face. "I've been working all morning trying to recover them, but I'm afraid the data might be lost." I smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. "Stand up," I said. "Excuse me?" "Stand up and step away from my computer." "Serena, I understand you're upset, but now." Something in my voice must have gotten through to her, because she stood up. I sat down in her chair and opened my laptop. The screen lit up, and I immediately saw what she'd been doing. She'd been trying to permanently delete the Morrison files, but she'd made a critical error. She'd moved them to the trash, but she hadn't emptied it. I restored the entire Morrison folder with 3 clicks. 3 months of work, hundreds of documents, all right there. "Well, would you look at that?" I said, loud enough for the entire office to hear. "The files aren't corrupted at all. They're just in the trash. Imagine that." Cassandra's face went white. Around us, people had stopped pretending to work and were openly staring. I opened the audit report I'd completed last Friday. 300 pages of detailed analysis, recommendations, compliance findings. Everything Morrison needed to meet their regulatory deadlines. "Everett," I called out, and he appeared at his office door immediately. "The Morrison audit is complete and ready for delivery. Always has been." He walked over, looked at the screen, and his face went through about 6 different emotions in 10 seconds. "How?" he started. "Someone moved it to the trash," I said, looking directly at Cassandra. "But they forgot to empty the trash. Lucky for Morrison. Unlucky for whoever put it there." Cassandra tried to recover. "I must have accidentally..." "Accidentally?" I interrupted. "You accidentally moved 300 pages of documentation to the trash? You accidentally told Everett the files were corrupted? You accidentally created a crisis that threatened a $12 million contract?" She opened her mouth, but no words came out. Jonathan Ashford chose that moment to walk onto our floor. I recognized him from company newsletters. Tall, silver-haired, with the kind of presence that makes everyone straighten their posture. The conversations around us died completely. "Ms. Chen?" he said, looking at me. "That's me. Is the Morrison situation resolved?" I gestured to the laptop screen. "The audit is complete and ready for delivery. It always was." He looked at the screen, then at Cassandra, then at Everett. "I see. And can someone explain to me how a completed audit ended up in the trash on the same day that the person who completed it was terminated?" The silence was deafening. Finally, Cassandra spoke up. "Mr. Ashford, I think there's been a misunderstanding. I was trying to help Ms. Whitmore," he said, and his voice cut through her explanation like ice. "I've spent the last hour reviewing email logs, file access records, and personnel decisions. There's no misunderstanding here." He turned to Everett. "Mr. Walsh, my office, now." Then he looked at me. "Ms. Chen, I believe you and I have a conversation to finish. Would you join us? I looked around the office. Everyone was staring. Cassandra looked like she was about to cry. Everett looked like he wanted to disappear into the floor. I'll be right there, I said. I just need to send the Morrison audit first. I opened my email, attached the complete audit file, and sent it directly to Dr. Patricia Vance at Morrison Construction. 12 years of experience had taught me that when you have leverage, you use it quickly before someone figures out how to take it away from you. Then I stood up, looked at Cassandra one last time, and walked toward the executive floor. The conversation in Jonathan Ashford's office lasted 2 hours. By the time I walked out, Cassandra was being escorted from the building by security. Everett was still employed, but barely, and only after agreeing to a formal disciplinary action that would follow him for the rest of his career at Meridian. As for me, I was no longer an audit analyst making $53,000 a year. I was the new director of compliance operations, with a salary that reflected 12 years of expertise that someone had tried to throw away. But the money wasn't the victory. The title wasn't the victory. The victory was walking back through that office, past all those cubicles, knowing that I'd learned something invaluable about my own worth. I'd spent 12 years being loyal to a company that saw me as replaceable. I'd confused being indispensable with being valued. I'd mistaken keeping my head down for being professional. It took getting stabbed in the back to realize that sometimes the best thing that can happen to you is discovering exactly how much power you actually have. As I was packing up my new office later that week, I found Cassandra's leather notebook in one of the desk drawers. Out of curiosity, I flipped through it, page after page of observations about our co-workers, who seemed unhappy, who complained about management, who might be looking for other jobs. She'd been building a case against half the department, not just me. The last entry was dated the day before I was fired. It said, S. Chen eliminated. Position secured. Next target, Marcus when he returns from vacation. I closed the notebook and dropped it in the trash. Then I thought better of it and handed it to Jonathan Ashford instead. Marcus deserved to know what he was coming back to. 6 months later, I'm still at Meridian, but everything has changed. I have a team of 4 people reporting to me. I have a budget that lets me implement real improvements instead of just maintaining the status quo. I have a voice in decisions that affect not just my department, but the entire regional operation. And I've learned something that I wish I'd understood 12 years ago. Loyalty should never be unconditional. Competence without recognition is just exploitation. And sometimes the people who smile at you the most are the ones you need to watch the closest. Cassandra taught me that, and for that, I suppose I should thank her, though I suspect she's learned a few lessons of her own since then. Last I heard, she was working at a small accounting firm across town, doing data entry for $12 an hour. Karma, it turns out, has perfect timing and an excellent sense of irony. As for me, I still work long hours sometimes, but now it's by choice, not by obligation. I still solve problems and prevent crises, but now I get credit for it. And I still trust my coworkers, but now I verify everything, because the best revenge isn't getting even. It's becoming so successful that your enemies become irrelevant. And sometimes, if you're very lucky, they become cautionary tales that other people tell to illustrate why competence, integrity, and real expertise will always triumph over politics, manipulation, and brown-nosing. In the end, Cassandra did me the biggest favor of my career. She forced me to stop undervaluing myself and start demanding what I was worth. And that, it turns out, was worth a lot more than either of us had imagined.